So I founded Fashion Revolution in 2013. Fashion Revolution is the world's largest fashion activism movement, with the aim of holding the industry accountable for its practices and impacts. And since then, thousands of people have asked the question, who made my clothes? And now more than half of brands disclose where our clothes are made. So then I started to think, what would happen if we had more information about what's in our clothes? Considering that only a quarter of brands are saying what they're doing to address microfiber shedding, and only a third of brands tell us what toxic chemicals they prohibit in the manufacturing process. Yet, half of fashion's greenhouse gas emissions and over 90% of biodiversity loss and water stress occur during the extraction and the transformation of raw materials. In an attempt to raise awareness of these issues, we had a garden at this year's Chelsea Flower Show with the plants that can be used to make and dye our clothes. But natural dyes are not the norm in the industry, and while we do use natural fibres, synthetics have taken over in a massive way. And this means that textiles now account for around 35% of global microplastic pollution. And in here you can see 5 millilitres of microfibres. This came from just one wash and dry cycle of 8 cotton polyester blend lab coats. And I saw this impact at first hand 2 years ago when I sailed from the Galapagos to Easter Island into the South Pacific Gyre, carrying out scientific research into the impact of our clothes on the environment. So now fashion has started to look at more sustainable materials, assuming that natural fibres would readily biodegrade. But it's not yet clear whether well-intentioned efforts to reduce plastic pollution may be replacing one environmental issue with another. The textile industry uses over 15,000 different chemicals, and some of these processes, like mercerization and regeneration, change the cell structure to one which doesn't occur in nature. And further modification occurs through bleaching, dyeing, applying repellents, flame retardants, softeners, antimicrobials. And all of this means that natural fibres do not simply disappear in nature. And scientific studies are showing that up to 70%, in many cases 80% of the total fibres found in fresh water, marine waters, animals and the atmosphere come from natural fibres. Over the past year, I've been working with researchers from Keele and Loughborough University in the UK on Fashion Revolution's Restoring Riverscapes project, focusing on the historic textile town of Leek in Staffordshire. Now, Leek became globally renowned for its dye works because of the purity of its river water, but with dozens of mills pumping out dyes and chemicals into the river, it fast became the most polluted river in the whole of Europe. One local resident even told us about catching purple fish. And we worked with engaging the local community in citizen science projects. Our water samples along the course of the river revealed microfibres at every site. Now, rivers are nature's highways, and the textile fibres entering them can potentially interact with other chemical pollutants which might enter the river. They can be transported long distances into our oceans as well. And it's also appearing that natural fibres shed their chemical pollutants more readily than their plastic equivalents. Now, we also collected a sediment core, you can see here, from Rudyard Lake, which lies downstream of several historic textile mills. Mud at the bottom of lakes is made up of layers of sediments and particles that have washed into the lake, and it can therefore be used as a kind of time machine to examine how fibres and pollutants have changed over time. And just as in our water samples, cotton was the most common fibre we found. It was present throughout the core, with blue and black fibres being the most common fibres we found. The gaps on the chart here are just ones that we couldn't analyse due to lack of funds. Now, the Restoring Riverscapes project shows that fibres of all types are present and persistent in our environment, and they do not break down, at least for decades we can see, possibly for centuries. And while the problems in the River Churnet appear to have gone away, at least it doesn't change colour 3 times a week, these problems haven't entirely gone away. We've just exported them elsewhere. So we now need an international effort to make sure we understand the full and ongoing impacts of all textile fibre and chemical pollution. We're looking for funding to try and deepen this research in the UK and expand it overseas. But for now, one thing is clear. If the fashion industry wants to drive sustainability, it must start by understanding the true value of materials, which should be mindfully designed and redesigned and recuperated as a valuable resource. Thank you.